Welcome to Helpful Hints for Chapter 6, just some basic guidelines about ICD-10 CM coding. First of all, when coding, remember to assign codes to the highest level of detail possible, and let the tabular list help you on this front. So let's pretend we're here in the tabular list for this example. Let's pretend you started in the alphabetic index for the condition or disease of conjunctivitis, and somehow you ended up in the tabular list at code H10, 3 characters. Well, right off the bat, we know that this is not a valid code. Checkmark 4th is telling us you need a 4th character. So H10 is not valid unless it has an additional 4th character added. So we make a decision. We've got H10.0 for mucopurulent conjunctivitis, or H10.1 for acute atopic conjunctivitis. So based on whatever your medical documentation may be, let's say we ended up choosing the H10.0, which is 4 characters. Wait, that's also not a valid code. We have a little note here, checkmark 5th. We need a 5th character. So let's look under the indentations for that 4-character code. 0.01 for acute follicular conjunctivitis, or 0.02 for other mucopurulent conjunctivitis. So again, checking with your documentation. So let's say we ended up choosing acute follicular conjunctivitis with our 5 digits here. Wait, we need a 6th. It's reminding us, hey, more detail is possible. So we go in one more indentation level. 1 for right eye, 2 for left eye, 3 for bilateral, 9 for unspecified. Again, making that decision. So let's say it was of the left eye. This would mean our final code would be H10.012 for the left eye. So again, keep drilling down, get to that highest level of detail within the tabular list. Now let's consider combination codes. A combination code is a single code used to classify either 2 diagnoses at the same time, a diagnosis with a secondary condition, or a diagnosis with an associated complication. So as an example, let's consider this diagnosis statement. Acute cholecystitis with cholelithiasis and choledocholithiasis. So look back at your medical terminology, think back, let's apply those word parts. So here we have inflammation of the gallbladder, and then we have a condition of gallstones and a condition of bile or gall duct stones, so stones in the bile duct. So we've got 3 different things going on here. So let's start. It's telling us we have cholecystitis. Let's start there and see where the alphabetic index takes us. So cholecystitis, we know we have an acute condition, acute with calculus. Remember that calculus is just another word for stones. Stones in the cystic duct or bile duct, which is what we have here, or stones in the gallbladder, which is what we have here. Either way, it's telling us to go see the main term calculus. So we're going to head that way in the alphabetic index. So here we're still in the alphabetic index, this time with the main term of calculus. And look closely here at the subterms. We have a subterm for bile duct, but we also have one for gallbladder. Oh, but wait, down here we have a combination one for gallbladder and bile duct. Oh, all right, so we've got stones, calculus, in the gallbladder and bile duct, so that takes care of this and this, with cholecystitis, that inflammation of the gallbladder. That leads us to code K8 0.60. So one code, a combination code, took care of this entire diagnosis statement. So let's talk about mandatory multiple coding, which the use of square brackets in the alphabetic index. This signifies or denotes mandatory multiple coding. So let's take a look at the example, the diagnosis statement here. Combined spinal cord degeneration with anemia due to dietary vitamin B12 deficiency. So let's start with our main term of degeneration combined, happens to be a subterm. Spinal cord is a non-essential modifier here, so we have that included. And if we take a close look at the subterms here, with anemia due to dietary B12 deficiency, and it gives us two codes, one in square brackets. So we have D51.3 and G32.0. So the code in the square brackets, the G32, this is how the condition is manifesting itself. So the D51 code is actually the code for the anemia due to the vitamin B12 deficiency, and it's manifesting itself. This condition is manifesting as spinal cord degeneration. So whenever you see two codes listed with the square brackets, you must list both of them, and you must list them in the same order that they're given in the code book. So D51.3 and then G32.0. Sometimes you will find in medical documentation that one condition is described as both acute and chronic at the same time. So how do we handle that in the alphabetic index? So if there is a separate subterm for each acute and chronic, so for example, acute and chronic bronchitis, we have a subterm for acute and we have a subterm for chronic, and they're at the same indentation level here, then you would code them both, but list the acute code first. So in this particular situation, we would code J20.9 and then pull in the J42 for the chronic. So if there's two subterms, same indentation level, code them both with the acute listed first. On the other hand, when only one of those terms, acute or chronic, is listed as a subterm, and one of them is listed in parentheses as a non-essential modifier, only the code listed for the subterm is assigned for that particular condition. So here we have chronic listed as a non-essential modifier. So remember, that means it doesn't really matter if that's present in the medical documentation or not. So in this case, chronic is not a subterm, it's a non-essential modifier, and acute is a subterm. So when this is the case, you always choose the one that's the subterm. So in this case, for the acute and chronic adenoiditis, we would just choose the acute code, J03.90. Now let's discuss coding for late effects or sequelae. Sequelae is just another word for late effects. This is the plural. If you take off the E, sequela is the singular, just one late effect. But late effects always require two codes. The condition or the nature of the late effect is sequenced first, followed by the code for the cause of the late effect. So looking at this diagnosis statement, tuberculous calcification of the kidney. So here we have calcification of the kidney being caused by, it's a late effect of tuberculosis. So let's start with our main term of calcification, subterm kidney, subterm tuberculous, and here we have the square brackets for the mandatory multiple coding, N29 and B90.5. So again, the nature of the late effect is sequenced first. Here, the N29 for the calcification of the kidney, and then that is followed up with the code that caused that late effect. In this case, it was that late effect of tuberculosis, B90.1. Happy coding this week. Feel free to email me or post to the Coding Roundtable if you have any questions. Have a great week.